Hello guys, and welcome back to another video. Today, as the title suggests, I'm going to talk about how Karin Miyoshi from Yuki Yuna as a Hero is a shining example of how to write a Tsundere character. I have a big scripted video planned on the entirety of the Yuki Yuna series, but for now I want to give a little bit of a sample, so I decided to make a similar video as my one on Twin Turbo I made about a month ago. I'll go into light spoilers for what is needed to explain parts of Karin's character, but I won't be talking about the complete series and the endings of the seasons within this video. So getting into it, Tsunderes, if you are unaware, are characters that are known for being hostile but hold warm emotions if you really get to know them. You often see this attributed to more romance anime, where a female romantic interest is embarrassed by flattering kindness and they reciprocate with violence. It is likely the most well-known character archetype within anime, and as well the most contentious, to a point that many people make the claim that they hate Tsunderes completely, making a sweeping claim over all characters that fall into that category. For a while, I generally agree with this claim, but every once in a while, I would find a character that makes me think otherwise. I feel what makes Tsunderes hateable in terms of writing is how it's not realistic. Tsundere is a way of explaining a dynamic of the character interaction with others, something completely human and most reliant on having senses of realism to feel well done and enjoyable. I'm not one who holds the opinion more realistic means good, but when it comes to character interactions, I almost always desire a realistic feeling interaction. If someone isn't using realism, then it is often advantageous to take something completely out of the box and make it interesting through its uniqueness. But Tsunderes are a well-known trope, and a trope by definition denotes very little uniqueness. Overall, a lot of people agree that it's not satisfying to watch someone be abusive to someone who shows them kindness. Sure, masochists can get off to it, but not many others like to really see it, which in turn causes the strong hatred and unfavorability to Tsunderes as a whole. Which brings us to Karin Miyoshi, who still fits to the definition and conditions of being a Tsundere, but is written so that you don't have the complaints and grievances that I've listed earlier. I'll explain. When she first gets introduced, she proves her powers in battle and shows little incompetence in her job. She introduces herself to other heroes and how she has finished her training as the most optimal hero. Apparently, she holds a strong ego and likely wouldn't have come off as aggressive if it wasn't for the lax nature of the rest of the main cast. I think this first helps with the very strong Tsundere character, as before we are introduced to this new dynamic, we have been with the four characters that are the polar opposite of this character archetype. This aggressive behavior is overwhelmed and flooded by a very positive, cheerful behavior from everyone else. But Karin won't be a blemish to the series, as quickly within the episode she's introduced, we get to see so much about her that helps to understand why she is actually like this, completing its element of realism to the character dynamic, and also shows how you'll see quickly become a warm character and completely shed of this aggressive behavior. Quickly into her introduction, we get to see who she will attach herself to the most. Yuna is the one singled out from the rest of the heroes for being the most ignorant, oblivious, and dumb. She of all members stays extremely warm to everything Karin says to her. Beyond that, she has the incident with her fairy Yuki nibbling on Karin's fairy, immediately calling into question Yuna's capability of control. Leads to a moment in the episode of Karin asking if people think that she's stupid in a pretty harsh manner. But Yuna cutely says, yes, actually. It is Yuna's thick skin and possible denseness that would really help break Karin's shell. It's quick into the episode, we also learn more about her background in some more subtle, less pointed out ways. We see into Karin's room that is completely blank and empty of any personality, with the only unique version being a place of prayer and a treadmill. Many won't look at this with much critical thought at all, and wait for more pointed information that comes towards the end of her introduction episode, but you can see how she doesn't have much of a personality and passion. In the couple of minutes we hear from her, we only get to see how she believes herself to be the best hero. She seems generally cocky, but when you think about this and all that makes up her life, that becomes more reasonable and generally sad. This, counted with other things said in intrapersonal communication like, everyone's counting on me, that's why I don't need to have a normal life, and as well, failure keeping up with basic social cues, says tons about her background and how unhealthy it is. But I'll leave that for a bit. She gives a surprise birthday party at the end of the episode, held by all the heroes she has up until this point been very rude to. It, in many ways, is the most surprising surprise birthday party, as we get to see something more poignant within the dialogue. After being flustered and left going silent for a long time, she says, "I've never had a birthday party before, okay?" in a very embarrassed tone. The show doesn't dwell on it long, and we don't get much direct info from her past until some of the side light novel content stories. Hints on how she grew up and was raised in a very formal business-oriented environment, where her only goal was to work to be a good hero for the Taisha. Now, this isn't the in-depth Yuna lore video, so I'll spare you the details, but as can be assumed, when you live a life of business, there isn't much family or even emotions. You get yelled at if you're not good at your job, you get to cheat your job if you're doing well. Her aggressive behavior is similar to a harsh employer, and we can see exactly how she ended up how she is. Most of my case is over, but I want to talk about some of the later points of Karin's growth. For the rest of this season, she slowly becomes less snarky. She stops being mean very quickly, but holds softcore Tsundere behavior, but you can see how she opens up and starts forming more emotional responses. Even later, she becomes a very emotionally driven and loving character. We see this a lot within moments with Yuna. One of her most important moments within the first season is towards the end when Yuna is distraught because of what is currently happening with the person she's known longest within the hero group, and she feels she has failed as a friend. This scene is very well done, as you can still see how she isn't amazing at being emotional support, as she's been deprived of very social loving behavior for most of her life. But you see her doing her best, saying you don't pass or fail at friendship, and still having full confidence in Yuna's ability to sway people, as she was swayed by Yuna herself. This leads into an amazing moment of her taking on 5 powerful enemies all at once, sacrificing everything and clearing the path for Yuna. Which then leads to a very emotional moment where after the fight she's left unable to move most of her body along with losing her sight and hearing. I'll have a bigger breakdown on it all when I make a video on the entire series, but it explains more blatantly what her life was, and I think most importantly, she just tells Yuna thank you with a cutoff before going into detail. So, what is meant to be said is up for inference. Overall nice touch. And one more moment within season 2 is when Yuna has been acting very weird the entire day when they were out with friends. She was seemingly generally exhausted, spacey, and not excited. See Karin step Yuna aside and urge her that if there is anything wrong, to tell her. To keep spoilers out of this section, I will say is that there was something clearly and terribly wrong. But that thing in question doesn't let you communicate that something is wrong without major consequences. And because of Yuna's resistance, see Karin spill her emotions out, saying that if it's for her, she would do anything to help. She's happy that even for one person she can feel this way, and it's because of the rest of the heroes and her that she can even feel this way in the first place. There's more past this, but that is all that can be said before really getting into the nitty gritty. So, case in point, yeah, just write your Tsundere so that they become not Tsundere. I guess it's not what some people wanted to hear after I talked about excellent Tsundere character. Honestly, by the definition of the character trope, they will often be completely illogical and unrealistic, making for weird character dynamics that don't make sense. If you have some way to make it logical, like with this character's ideology, then maybe you could get away with writing a good one. I think this character transformation from getting out of the archetype can be tackled in other places, and it has room to grow. This is my one claim to a well-written Tsundere. Thanks for watching.